Hi everyone, so today we are working on a custom set of stairs for my in-laws. So we went through and in the first episode we covered our table saw safety. For this project we're also going to need to add a handsaw, tape measure, a pencil for marking, a square. Even though it's a triangle, this is actually called a square because it helps you to form right angles. And then, of course, we've got our wood and material that we'll begin with cutting and preparing for the project. So before we get to cutting the wood, the most important step that needs to have a significant amount of time when you're doing any template or custom plan is to have your drawings and your measurements all figured out. Because if you go to the store and buy wood, you'll quickly realize that wood is not the cheapest raw material out there. So we want to make sure that we're not putting in waste into our project. So since this is a custom stair, we can't go with our normal basic templates that come from your Home Depot or someplace like that. We had to get measurements of the specific place where we're working. And in this particular project, the stairwell is going from the garage to the main house. It's 3 steps up, but our staircase will have 2 different planes. And then in addition, there's a concrete cutout at the base of it that we'll have to create a notch for. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to go with a box staircase design. So we're here at my house right now, and what we'll do is we'll build each level of the stairs by starting with the box template. And that way we bring sections with us when we go to the actual house to do the install. This will make it more efficient because we'll already have all of our cuts made, some of the box assembled, so it'll just be a matter of finishing assembly once we're there. So we've got our drawings ready to go. So we're going to start getting our cuts together so we have our wood ready to go. And then the step after that will then be beginning the assembly. All right, so we're in the process of cutting some of our boards here. So we're going to be using our square. And what's nice about the square when you're cutting against right angles is the edge of the square will allow you to hook to the edge of the board and hold it solid against it. It then has measuring notches along here, just like a ruler or a tape measure would. So on this particular cut, we need to create a notch that's going to hit against the edge of the staircase. So we'll take a couple of positions, notching up and down to make sure that we have a consistent line for where we're going to be cutting. So since we're doing a notch, we're looking at doing from two different angles. So we have our measurements that we took and figured out on our plans first, so we know exactly what we need to cut. Okay. Okay. So then this cut is actually going to take out a notch over the majority of the board and just leaving a little tip out at the edge. So by marking my measurements at several positions down the board, it gives me a good line. So now I take my tape measure, run it from the initial marker, let it hang and lock it down the edge of the board, and then I can just line up all along those marks I made to get myself a cut line that goes the entire length of the board. Okay, so then my line is straight if it goes through each of those marks I made with the square. Then, to make sure that I'm good, their saying goes, measure twice, cut once, or an alternate one is measure once, cuss twice. So we're going to go through and now we're going to check our line, making sure that we're holding the square even across the front and the back of the square, and making sure that the line that we drew lines up with the measured marker. Okay. Then we're going to check this one more time for our little notch there, and it looks to be good as well. All right. So we've got two boards that need the same cut. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our measurement for this one as well. So we've got our measurements on both of the boards that we're going to be cutting. Now, something to note here is I do have my hand saw available as well. Because with the circular saw, what will end up happening is you end up with the curve of the blade. So as the curve of the blade comes in and around, you're going to actually cut too deep because of that angle to get all the way to the notch. So what we'll actually be doing is we'll be cutting a majority of the board with the table saw, but then we'll stop and finish so we can do a straight edge here. Otherwise, what's going to end up happening, especially with as narrow of a margin as we have for our notch that'll be sticking up here, by the time we get through this board, we'll have cut it off. The other thing safety-wise is it is tempting to stack boards and cut them together. However, this will lead to safety issues as well as inaccurate cuts, because the slightest amount of shift of the top board versus the bottom board can cause your cuts to be off in terms of the measurement you want. So before plugging in, I'm going to go ahead and line up the position of the saw blade to the line I want cut. I'm going to adjust my guide bar in. Okay. And when you're doing your alignment, make sure for your measurement, your alignment is taking the thickness of the saw blade into account. So your cutting edge aligns with the length that you want for your board. Okay, so we now locked it in here. And again, with that measure twice, cut once, what we're going to do is we're going to find a line. Usually I'll look to line up with the guide bar here. Press my measuring tape up against that board and make sure that my measurement on one end equals my measurement on the other. That way, if this didn't clamp quite evenly, we can make a readjustment to it before we make our cut and see that it's equal. Then we'll come back here, line up, make sure the slight adjustment we made doesn't adjust the blade at all. So now that lined up and we're ready to cut. So I've got ear protection in, eye protection in, gloves on. Okay, plugging it in, clearing my space, checking my line again, and we're ready to cut. So saw blade is stopped. I'm gonna unplug it because what we want to do is we got to back this out, but we got to lift out our claws. These things prevent that kickback that we talked about in the safety video. And now you can see how deep the cut went here. You can see about a finger width in compared to the top where it's got 2 finger widths in. So we stopped just in the nick of time by giving that extra so that we can finish this off by hand and not cut into the wood. Okay, so now since we're already in position, we're going to plug back in and we're going to make the same cut on the second piece. Okay. Saw blades come to a stop. We've unplugged, so now we can lift the kickback safety, and again, just about perfect on that board. So next, we're gonna come in here and remove our guide bar, because we're just gonna be making a little cut on the notch there, more or less with where we're at. We're basically gonna get this started so our measurement is in line. And then we'll finish everything off with the handsaw. And we'll do this on both of our pieces of wood. Now, another piece on this one is we'll be able to back this out without lifting the claw because we're going to be short. And on that note, thunder and lightning, safety first, we got to get inside.